Hey guys, this video is probably going to go in our castles, temples and shrines playlist, although there's no castles, temples or shrines in this video, but that is the topic. Somebody asked this week about how they finance the temples and the shrines, how they pay for the maintenance and the upkeep and so on, and we've been asked that one before. So it's really not clear. There's a whole heap of things. First of all, the most obvious one is there is a box that you would have seen in those videos about the temples and the shrines. There's a wooden box that sits. So the shrines are Shinto, the temples are Buddhist, but they both have boxes that sit in front of the sort of the altar, or in front of the Butsudan, or in front of the shrine itself. There's always a box, and when people go there and pray, they usually throw money in the box, right? It's sort of part of the thing. So obviously there's those donations that get made by people who are there praying at the temples and the shrines. There's also a lot of money comes from the community. So they come around. They come around when there's events going on. They come around to collect the money. We've talked about this on previous videos. They just turn up at the doorstep and say, you know, there's a festival on, you know, spring festival's coming up and we're here to collect $50 or whatever they're collecting. Usually they tell you how much they're there for, and they collect the money. Might have shown you years ago, outside one of the shrines was a huge board, and you often see this. You often see around shrines, you'll see huge boards up with lots of names on them. And it's either one that's just been put up for the event. So sometimes when you go to those things, they come around, they collect the money from all the people, and then when you go to the event at the shrine, you'll see they'll have a big board up with everybody's name on it that donated money to the event. And people who've paid more money obviously get featured bigger. So it's a sort of a bit of a community, it's a community spirited thing. But there's also is a little bit of community pressure there because everybody's name's up there, you know, and the people who've paid more money sort of get featured more prominently. So that'll actually be usually a temporary thing. But you also have places where you go to where they've either had some time in the past where they've done a big renovation of the place, or they've, you know, for some other reason they've needed to collect a lot of money for the place, and they'll have a permanent board up with names on it, or even sometimes they'll have big carvings, big piece of stone with lots of names carved into it of people who've paid money to have the shrine built or have the shrine rebuilt, or for some other reason have paid big money. So there's that too. There's also a whole variety of different ways. So for example, there's some shrines and temples where they're just small ones and nobody's there permanently. It sort of just belongs to the community and it's just there. And then when there's something happening, the priest will come along and open the doors and do his thing, you know. So they're sort of like little temporary ones, or even smaller ones where priests sort of almost never go there. They're just sort of a little thing that's upkept by the local people, and they'll go along and do their own little praying thing there sometimes, and you might never see a priest there. That's quite common too with the little ones. And then you get the bigger ones where there'll actually be a live-in priest, where they'll actually have a big temple or a big shrine, and next to it will be a house. Usually an old house, but sometimes they'll actually have sort of off to one side away from the main temple itself, but there might even be a newer house. So you might have a 500-year-old temple with a 50-year-old house off in one sort of corner. And you will see that sometimes on those shrine and temple videos when I'm walking around making those videos and just showing you around. Sometimes you will see a little house off to one side. And often in those places you'll see that the temple's open and the shrine's open. And that'll be a live-in thing where the priest lives there permanently. And see too, quite often the priests have families. Not always. Sometimes you just got the guy there with his shaved head living on his own. But it's not uncommon to have them living with their families, which sort of leads to the next thing too. sometimes these things are sort of operated like a family business, where you know, the great grandfather was the priest at this temple, and then you know, he passed it down to his son, who became the priest at the temple, who passed it down to his son, who's the current priest at the temple. And I actually met a guy once that said that I think he was Shinto. I can't remember now if he was Shinto, but he'd inherited the shrine from his father, this big shrine, and that, you know, his father used to be the priest there, now he's the priest there, right? And it's sort of like their job, it's sort of like their business. And then what they'll have is, and those of you who have been with us for a while would have seen all these things. They'll have things at the shrine or the temple, like festivals and things, but they also have things like when children are born, quite often they're taken to a shrine, to a Shinto shrine, to be sort of blessed. So Christians would probably, sort of the equivalent of a christening, I guess, for Christians, you know, but Shinto thing. So they'll take them there, and the priest does a ceremony, you know, for maybe 10-15 minutes, and then maybe put a little stamp on the baby's forehead, and it's sort of blessing the child and bringing it good health and happiness and that sort of thing for its life, you know. And we did that with our kids, and it was for the in-laws. The father-in-law's quite into this sort of stuff, so we do a lot of ceremonies like that for him because it makes him happy, you know. And it's sort of a cultural, for us it's a cultural thing, and we don't mind doing it. For him it's sort of got more meaning, and it's sort of important to him, so we're happy to do it, you know. And that particular thing was about probably 10-15 minutes. You go in, you have to dress up and wear all your good clothes. We might have done a video on this, and you've got to wear all your good clothes, and you sit there and it's all quite formal, and they sit there and we do hey ho, you know, 15 minutes, and you hand over an envelope to the priest or to his assistant, and I can't remember, it was like $80 or $100 or something for this ceremony. It was like 10 or 15 minutes, and before us was another family doing it for their baby, and then after us was another family doing it with their baby, and he had a whole schedule for the day. And because you can imagine, in a town, you know, where you've got new babies all the time, it's quite a job, you know. They're getting these one after another, $80, $100, you know, one after another. He could do, goodness knows how many of those he could do, 20 or 30 of those in a day, you know. So it's quite a business. And then that's births, but of course deaths as well. You know, we've discussed that before, and we made a video about that recently, about not just the funerals themselves, but the ongoing thing. Those of you who haven't seen that video already, check that out. You've got the person dies, that day you have the priest comes to your house or to the funeral centre, and then every day for the next week you'll have a ceremony, and you'll be there all day, but the priest will come for 30 minutes each day for a week, and every time he comes you've got to be handing him an envelope of cash, right? And then after that it's once a week that he'll usually come to your house and do a ceremony, and then it's once a month, and then it's once a year, and it's an ongoing thing. And so we've you know, we've been to lots of those for different people that, you know, martial arts masters and family members and all sorts of people. And then at the in-laws' house we have those events ongoing for different relatives, you know, great-grandparents and so on. You have that event every year, so we'll have a few of those each year, and the priest comes to the house and he's there for maybe an hour, and at the end he gets handed an envelope of cash, right? So it's quite a business. It is quite a business. So you know, that's where their income comes from, all those things that I've just mentioned. And then on top of that, you get the community groups. It's sort of, these things are handed down, right, through generations. So you get these community groups whose job it is to look after each shrine and temple, you know, and little like committees, right? Committees of people whose job it is, and they'll have like working bees and things where they all get together and maintain, and they might do that every week. And I mean, we've showed you all sorts of shrines and temples, like little ones, you know, little shrines that just one little structure that's permanently closed or permanently open, and that nobody mans it or nobody staffs it. It's just there for people to come and pray, and there'll be a group of local people. You know, you'll see maybe a little old man or a couple of little old men or an old lady there sweeping or pulling out weeds or something, maintaining it. And the bigger ones, you'll get groups of old guys, and you'll see them some days. They'll all be riding past our house some days on their bicycles with a rake or a brush cutter or some tools, gardening tools, strapped to their bicycles, or walking along with tools over their shoulders going down the street. And you know, okay, and because you've seen a few come past, you know, during the morning, and they're on their way down to the temple to give it a cleaning, you know, and a repairing. So it's sort of the answer. The short answer is that where's the money come from? Well, it sort of comes from the community. You know, in history, there's been different times in history where shogun and emperors have financed different temples and shrines and things over the years, because it's probably good for their PR, isn't it? You know, good PR, or for different reasons, probably for their religious beliefs or whatever. But now the answer would be, you know, the money through these different through these different channels, the money comes from the community. Basically, is the short answer. And the money comes from the community, and the manpower and the work that goes into maintaining it comes from the community too. Just briefly too, when those festivals happen and they drag the dashi through the streets, the dashi will often stop, and we've caught this a few times on video. The dashi will often stop outside different people's houses or outside different business premises, and they'll stop, and I'll turn the dashi around to face that place, and they'll do special chanting and things, and they'll go knock on the door and hey, and that's because the people who live in that house or the people that own that business have paid extra money to the group, the community, for the support of the festival, so they get sort of special sort of recognition for what they've done. So yeah, short answer is the community. The community pays to support the shrines and the temples. So there's the answer to that question. Anyway, that's enough of that. It's getting dark, isn't it? More videos coming soon.